Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Barker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello everyone and welcome to AOC Gaming's League of Champions powered by VRRC. My name is Jack Ovens. You are joined, well I am joined even, by Dave Marshall in the virtual commentary box as per usual for the mini JCW. Now, we're at the Nurburgring, it's round 2, things are starting to get serious and we're coming to the end of the League of Champions as we know it. We'll bring you all the updates on the standings as they stand in a couple of minutes. But there we go, fixed setup, mini JCWs. They look fantastic, they drive pretty well as well, according to Dave anyway, and they are a spectacle to behold, aren't they, Dave?
Yeah, they really are. Really quite difficult to get the most out of them, but there's some drivers that definitely start to step up to that mark now, and we're going to see who them are in the timing sheets.
We absolutely are indeed. We'll be able to bring you obviously the standings, but what is the League of Champions? Well, the mini JCW, you can see on the right-hand side of your screen right now. We've already had the Janetta Super Cup, we've already had the Touring Cars, and we have just about finished up on the GT4 Sprint Cup as well. So the minis are the last piece of the puzzle. It's going to be absolutely spectacular finale as well. And to be honest, the finale is shaping up to be quite amazing. 20 grand worth of prizes to be won. We've already gone through most of it, to be honest, but this is the finale races that they're all aiming towards. You add up all 4 series, the Janettas, Touring Cars, GT4s and the Minis, and you see where you're placed at the end of it. If you're 1st to 10th, you go into a finale race for an AccuForce V2 Pro steering wheel and base. OBP Sports pedals in second place, and to be honest, they'll probably make you up more time than the AccuForce. And the AOC 34-inch curved display that you maybe saw just a moment ago in our advert. If you are placed between 11th and 20th, well, you go into race 2 and you still get the opportunity to win a Sim Race 5, Sim Race 3, and a GT F1 racing seat. And Dave will talk to you about how you can win them, even in the individual championships, like the Mini JCW.
Yeah, so as you said, you've got the Race 2 finale, but the individual prizes for each individual championship. First place prize, as you see on screen, is one of our SR5, our Sim Race 5 chassis. Second place is one of our SR3 Sim Race 3 chassis. And then third place prize is one of our GT F1 seats. That goes from both upright GT position to full F1 reclined back on the same brackets. It's just as simple as removing a few of the bolts out the side and repositioning the seat. Then also from 4th all the way down to 8th place, we've got membership packages, which all is helps allow you to spend credits in our shop, from anything from race entries to driver coaching, the likes of that. So yeah, basically opportunity to finish pretty much anywhere on the grid and still win something there, Jack.
That absolutely is, and in fact, you can indeed actually be anywhere on the grid and still win Driver of the Round. If you're the driver who's been the most improved or the most exciting, got us off our seats and heart pumping, but you can always win a pair of AOC gaming headsets as well. I was actually supposed to get one of these this weekend at Duxton, and unfortunately I left it in the VRRC sim truck, annoyingly, so hopefully when I see Richard Croft, I'll be able to pick one of these bad boys up for myself and use it for commentating, because they do look awesome. Right, looking back, we were at Hockenheim last week. We're obviously at Nurburgring, keeping it European for now. But Jordan Brennan, he came away with the most amount of points. Dan Zelos was second place, and Chris Shepard was third. And because that was round 1 of the Mini JCWs, you'll also see that curtailed into the championship standings, which are right on your screen. Brennan, he went on pole, he got 2 fastest laps, and he got 2 race wins. Pretty much perfect for Brennan that weekend. Dan Zelos, obviously in second place with Chris Shepard in third. Scott Bugner, Ryan Elliot round out the top 5. Newsham, McIntyre, Dorman, Brad Smith, and Sutton all the way down to 10th. But you can see that there's the ballast on board as well, Dave, isn't there?
There is indeed. So we've got weight for the 8 going down in 10 kilograms all the way from first place. So yeah, there's a few drivers, I think you'll agree, Jack, were maybe a little bit out of position from last round. We thought Jack might have been a little bit higher up, but unfortunately getting battered around a little bit in that race too. But then other drivers that seem to average out just where they've come out on top. So Dan Zelos, not a particularly great race 1, about mid-pack, but brought home the race win in race 2, and that brought him back up to the pack. But as you see, 2 people on 19 points, 2 people on 25, 25 and 28. It is still so close. So that ballast is going to really jumble things up. And I tell you what, from the timing sheets, Andy Dorman with 10 kg is the one to watch today.
Yeah, we'll have a chat about how Andy Dorman did last week, as well as how he may be well doing this week as well. But first, we're going to take you for a hot lap around the Nurburgring GP circuit, not the full Nordschleife. Don't worry, we could be here forever otherwise. By our good friend, Dave Marshall.
Out of the last corner and across the line here for the second round of the League of Champions Mini JCW Championship powered by VRRC. Down to turn 1 here, super hard to spot a braking point, but crucial that you get the car stopped and rotated on that apex to allow you to get the drive out of the hairpin. Just carrying the speed through turn 3 and making sure you're not too early on that throttle and getting out onto that green is very slippery indeed. Into turn 3, trying to be as tight as possible, you see, hugging all of that inside, and also making sure we don't close the right hander off there too much, keeping it open until we can get on the throttle. Now down towards this very tricky hairpin. It's obviously the short circuit, so it seems very bumpy indeed. It's going to probably be a case of in the race, might be a bit problematic for them lunges up the inside. Now into this left-hander, bit the same again as the early laps, not trying to roll it too far out on the exit and also not trying to clip that entry curve as well. Off the apex a little bit here, onto the back straight out of turn 12 here. Now down to turn 13, best opportunity, I would say, on this track for a good solid overtake in the slipstream. Remember, certain cars are going to have ballast on board. Super hard on the brakes here. Great opportunity for outbraking someone. See, I just monster the inside of that chicane there. You know, as long as it's within track limits, just get the car through there, throw it over, and keep the momentum through. Out of the last corner, tight hairpin, drive it out of third gear, and just pin it all the way to the line. Hopefully that's good enough for Paul. Make sure you tune in from 7:15 on Tuesday night on VRRC's Facebook and YouTube page to catch up with all the live action.
A lovely lap demonstrated by Dave there, and I have to say, I said it was the Nurburgring GP circuit. Well, it is the Nurburgring GP, but it's a slightly shortened version of it, so apologies if I caused any confusion. I know full well we were slightly confused in the commentary box there about what to call it. I think we'll probably call it the Nurburgring GP Short. I think, are we agreed on that, Dave?
Yeah, and then we'll maybe chuck a tight in at the end as well, because it's a tight chicane. But yeah, anyway, it is more or less the GP Nurburgring track there, isn't it? So yeah, I was just saying there in the track preview to you during while we're watching it there, Jack, that turn one for me, it's a notorious bottleneck, a bit like Spa. You've got that super tight hairpin, and there'll be all them drivers fighting for that inside line down towards that hairpin. But if you get someone that's brave on the brakes, there's an opportunity to do an outside manoeuvre and possibly get 2 or 3 cars there in turn one.
Yeah, well, we're very much looking forward. As you said, it all relies on the fact that it needs to be clean, doesn't it? You mentioned you almost brought in Spa, which is a touchy subject for any F1 fans out there tonight. But you brought in Spa, didn't you? La Source, first corner, obviously, at Spa, very much the same as the Nurburgring. Here, they both actually dip away in the same sort of camber as well, the elevation change. So it's going to be really key that the back end doesn't step out on these drivers early on as well. New driver to the championship, Will Powell. Now, we've just been doing some research, haven't we, Dave, on Will? You were coaching him earlier on, I heard. He's quick to pick up the car, even in the sim. He's obviously very quick in real-life racing as well. He's done all sorts, including his very successful Motus One business that you can see on the side of his Mini here. But from your work with him, he seems like he's going to be one to look out for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he'll probably accept himself that maybe front-wheel drive discipline isn't exactly where his expertise are, but he's got a lot of experience in rear-wheel drive, especially GT-style cars. And yeah, I tell you what, for a driver picking stuff up, within an hour would shave to 1.5 seconds off his lap time. So incredibly impressive driver, and going to be really interesting to see how he progresses. I know what time he said he wanted to set in qualifying here, and anything that he said sub 140 is really what he's aiming for. So let's keep an eye on that and see where he ends up.
Well, he's only about 4 tenths away from achieving that target, and he's got 7 odd minutes to do it in, hasn't he? In 11th place currently. He has driven in the Team Hard BTCC Cupra, front-wheel drive, obviously, and he's actually in the TCR UK in a Hyundai i30N. Obviously, all the TCR cars are front-wheel drive, but yeah, very interesting. It's a shame, actually, because he could have driven his basically exact car in the touring cars version of the League of Champions, couldn't he? A couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago now, actually. It feels like yesterday, but it must have been a couple of months ago now. So, yeah, very interested to see how he cracks on. A couple of other drivers who we're sort of, I would say, semi-used to seeing towards the sharp end of the field. Callum Newsham, he's currently in 4th place. Now, he's got 20 kilograms of... No, he hasn't. He's got 30 kilograms of ballast on board, has Callum. And you can sort of see that the ballast is really making an impact here at the Nurburgring, isn't it? This is obviously the first time we've seen ballast in the minis, and it is certainly having a presence.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's probably, for me, not one of the tracks that the ballast is going to have the biggest impact at. There's not that much gradient, which as soon as you add gradient and a bit of weight, that's when it can really accelerate how much that weight carries. So if you're on a steep downhill section towards a braking area, you can imagine that weight is really pushing you on. And the same on acceleration, that's the bit that's holding you back. So it's a relatively flat track here at the Nürburgring. So, you know, the ballast, as I said, isn't going to be worth quite as much. So I reckon with maximum ballast, we're looking just over half a second. So actually, Jordan Brennan down there in 7th place at the moment, a 39.7 is actually pretty comparable to what Andy Dorman and Jack are doing up front. He's a few tenths off where maybe he should be, but actually it shows how tight this grid is. You know, a 7th place, and he's only 4 tenths off where, you know, realistic, he's competitive.
Yeah, we're having a look at the times, actually. We just want to highlight Jack McIntyre's pole lap, or provisional pole lap at the moment, a full 3 tenths nearly quicker than Andy Dorman, a 38.9, absolutely screaming through the Nurburgring here at the moment. Because Andy Dorman, he was top of the pile in the practice, wasn't he, just before we went live here? He had done the best, well, as close to 160 laps as you can possibly get. Whereas Jack McIntyre had only done 8 laps in the server in total. So a fair old distance between them. It looks like Jack McIntyre's just got that. To be honest, Jack Mac's just gone green in Sector 1 as well. So keep an eye. That lap time may well come down even further. He's got some new boots on the trolley. He's going to try and see how quickly he can get his car around. There it is on your screen at the moment, just about to go through Sector 2, I believe. He's about to ping the timing screen, hopefully. Maybe not. Oh, car parked on the inside there. Hopefully no yellow flags interrupting him too badly. Looks like is Sector 2 either isn't coming up or Sector 3 is remarkably short. No, it's because the road's only 2 sectors, Dave. Apologies about that.
Yeah, and actually, yeah, as you said, he's just about to come across the line. This has looked like a quick time, almost identical to his pole lap. But actually, I was going to say, one of our academy drivers, Mick Sutton there, down in current P8, actually has the fastest Sector 1 out of anyone on the grid. So the academy seems to be really doing its work and progressing him as a very, very good driver indeed. And I tell you what, a few months back, he'd be fair happy to be inside the top 10 in qualifying.
Well, he's inside the top 10 of the overall League of Champions at the moment, isn't he? I mean, we've got 4 minutes of this to go. I'm just wondering if we can bring up the graphic of how everything stands at the moment for the League of Champions. There we go. We'll run through it very quickly. So, if you remember the prizes when we were explaining that, we said that if you're in the top 10 of the overall League of Champions, that is including and adding up everything from the Ginetta, the touring cars, the GT4 Sprint, and the Mini JCW, well, you will be entered into the first finale. This is racing for the AccuForce Direct Drive wheelbase and wheel, I think. The OBP Sports pedals as well. So big prizes that are on offer for the drivers who will go into this finale. You can see from Jack Mack, Ryan Elliot, Jordan Brennan, Scott Bugner, Dan Zelos, Callum Newsham, Max Edmondson, who we haven't actually seen for a little while, Andy Dorman, Andy Carroll, and Mick Sutton as well. So Mick will be very pleased to be in this top 10, but you can actually see his improvement as well. This is the second finale, looking from 11th to 20th place. Kenny Press, Paul Laramie, Luke Weston, Simon Thorpe, Robbie Stapleford, Chris Shepard. He's only managed to turn up for the GT4 Sprint. I think his mini score may well move him up to the top 10, but we'll have to wait and see. Maxi Rurik, Paolo Tempera, Alex Toft-Jones, and Martin Johnson. Unfortunately, a lot of names in there, Dave, we haven't seen again. But the minis is what we've got to focus on at the moment. So if we shift back to have a look, Jack Mack has gone purple in Sector 2, and he's brought that lap time down by another 0.2 of a second, meaning he's his best part of half a second ahead of Andy Dorman, who's still currently in second place. Will Powell and Dan Zelos, who has jumped in rather late in the evening, is why he's maybe explaining why he's down in 11th place. Currently improving Sector 2 as well. Callum Newsham just got a little bit quicker in Sector 2. Nobody else really putting in some improved Sector 1s here. All the Sector 1s are slower than they did earlier on in the session.
Yeah, definitely that. And you know, you were saying about Jack McIntyre hadn't done that many laps in practice. But remember there, Jack, you know, he's done 2 seasons now in the Mini E-Series Challenge. That's also running in November, I believe. So be sure to check out. Looking forward for sign-ups for that. But yeah, I tell you now, we did a lot of laps in practice for the Mini E-Series, so it's not like he hasn't spent a lot of time behind the wheel of this car, even though he's only done 8 laps.
Yeah, you absolutely bang on the money, and that's something we have to really recognise as well, isn't it, Dave? Because, of course, with that Mini E-Series that's coming up in November, obviously using pretty much exactly the same car, pretty much anyway, a lot of drivers will be looking for this championship to, one, obviously stake their claim in the League of Champions, try and win themselves a chassis or whatever else they want to win out of this championship, but also to practice massively for the Mini E-Series, obviously, as you said, running in November. So we're hopefully having some really competitive times and some good practice being put in there. And to be honest, I think it's already one of the most exciting series in the League of Champions that we've had so far. And that's saying something, because we've had some absolute corkers. The Ginetta finale and the Touring Car finale were absolute peaches. The GT4 didn't have the finale, but it did have the overall complexity of multi-car racing, which was just sensational to see in the tactics and everything. And we're back in the one class, the one car single make series, and it's just heating up yet again. I can't wait. Last 35 seconds, Callum Newsham coming across the line. It's not an improvement for Sector 2. It was an improvement in Sector 1, which is an anomaly, to be honest. Only Brad Smith has gone green in Sector 1. Since just stop what I'm talking about. Jack McIntyre puts it purple, Sector 1.
Yeah, Jack is really starting to hook up this car, isn't he? He's starting to get faster and faster as the time goes on. We maybe did expect to see this with him having such little weight in. We said he was a little bit out of place. This is the pace he actually has in the car. So to finish 7th after the last round out in the car was a little bit unrepresentative. But as I said, he's got low weight in the car, so he's really putting his stamp on this time. Andy Dorman there with another impressive qualifying. Remember, this is not just because of the weight. Andy Dorman qualified P3 last round out, so Dorman showing great pace in this car as well at the moment. And I noticed Will Powell is 200th off his goal lap time as well for qualifying. So I imagine Will be probably a little bit gutted after this as well.
Mick Sutton. Anybody just catch that? Mick Sutton fans out there?
P4.
Your man's in P4. Your man is in P4. Callum Newsham dropped down into 5th position. A huge improvement by Mick Sutton. That Sector 2 is hugely quick.
Will Powell.
Will Powell, where's he just turned up 9th place? Will Powell improves in Sector 2 at 39.772. He'll be extremely happy, I'm sure, with that, Dave, because I think that's about as quick as you got him in the coaching.
Yeah, I mean, a 39.7 is fantastic, but his goal was a 140 and he smashed that by 3:10. So fair play, Will. It's got him inside that top 10. But I tell you what, this grid is so jumbled up from what we've seen from the other rounds. There's drivers we didn't expect to see in certain places, and I tell you what, Mick Sutton has done an absolute corker of a job to get inside that top 5. Really interested to see what he can bring to this race.
Yeah, the top 10 separated by 1.3 seconds, and we can give you a quick rundown of it now then, as we're watching Scott Bugner, who I don't think is on a quicker lap.
Callum Newsham.
Callum Newsham, where's he just turned up? He's turned up into 2nd place. I don't know how we missed that. 52.7 in the second one. 39.2. He's deducted Andy Dorman down to 3rd place. Ryan Elliot to 4th. Mick Sutton 5th. Scott Bugner in 6th place. I don't think he's just improved. Chris Shepard's in 7th. Jordan Brennan in 8th. Will Powell 9th. Top 10 rounded out by Paul Laramie, with Dan Zelos, Kenny Press, Nicky Taylor, Brad Smith, and Simon Thorpe rounding out the top 15. Obviously, our pole man, who I didn't mention in that rundown, Jack McIntyre, by nearly half a second. Dave, go and have a word.
Well, will do indeed. And it just shows, Jack, doesn't it? You know, that knowledge of the car, that expertise that you've had in the other seasons of the mini challenge really just come dividend here, hasn't it? Nearly half a second pole. I mean, I was going to say that must have been a fair hooked up lap, but you were pretty consistent in them sort of high 30-year bracket. The only driver to do so. Great lap.
Cheers, Dave. Yeah, I had a bit of a horrid week last week. I think the track was one that I don't particularly enjoy, and the setup as well didn't really suit me. But I think, you know, coming to this week, this is a track that I've raced a lot on a lot of different sims. I've got 2 big races coming up over the next 4 or 5 weeks on this track, so it's fresh in my mind. So I think it's just a combination of that and having not much ballast as well. A lot of the quick guys behind have got quite a lot of weight in their cars, so that's probably contributed. But yeah, happy with those laps. Really getting it hooked up now.
Yeah, I was also talking to other drivers as well regarding the ballast. And yes, the ballast is pulling you back a bit, but personally, I actually prefer the cow with a little bit of that extra weight in it. It just seems to have a little bit more bite. So that little bit of ballast you've got on board, do you think it's affected the balance of the car much at all, or is it just maybe pulling you slightly back on the acceleration, a bit harder on the brakes as well?
It's tough to tell. I mean, there's not much weight there. Probably it's about the same amount of weight as it would be between quali and race fuel last week. So it does change the balance a little bit. You know, it seems to rotate a little bit more, which makes it a bit nicer to drive. But I think the less weight, the less weight you have in the car, the less you're taking around everywhere. So it's always going to be quicker with less. But yeah, car feels much better this week.
Well, huge congratulations, putting it P1 in qualifying, Jack, with a very, very impressive lap time. And I'll let you get your head down and concentrate for race 1.
Cheers, Dave. Thank you.
And that was Dave Marshall having a chat to our pole position man, Jack McIntyre. We're going to be cut to the grid in a few minutes, but first, let's have a look at some AOC gaming headsets. And we're back. And it's not long to go before we kick off the first race here in the Mini JCW at the Nurburgring Sprint Circuit, the GP Sprint Circuit to be specifically precise. Jack McIntyre on pole position, Callum Newsham second place, Andy Dorman in third. Now, Davey qualified third last week, didn't he? It was off the start that really suffered for him. Has he done some practice starts? We're not entirely sure, but it's a long way to turn 1 as Tom O'Farrell, who's in charge of the broadcasting cameras, picked up on before, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is probably, with it being the shorter version of the track, the sprint circuit, the start line is actually a lot further back on the straight than it would be on the normal versions. The normal version starts a lot closer. So actually, this could play right into the hands of them drivers that don't have the ballast. It might give them that overrun. So actually, for all Dormans in third, only on 10 kg, he's up against Newsham and Elliot beside him that have a lot more weight in that car. So this is going to be really interesting to see who's going to outdrag who and who is going to be the late of the last breakers.
Yeah, well, as the lights come on, the engine notes rise, and we're about to get racing for the first time here on a Tuesday night for the AOC Gaming League of Champions, and they're off. Andy Dorman, slightly slow away, but to be fair, it wasn't that bad. Although we'll have a proper look as we get down to turn 1. Jack McIntyre's absolutely flown off the line. Callum Newsham having to go slightly defensive with, I think, Ryan Elliot looking to go up the inside of Andy Dorman. Dorman going very wide into the corner, trying to go around the outside. There's a bit of a send in the background, but look at that, Ryan Elliot going up the inside. More bumping and barging with Will Powell in the mix. Where has Jordan Brennan ended up? He's still in 7th place, so that really hasn't hurt him all that ballast on board too much. Dorman's going side by side still with Ryan Elliot, and Dorman's going to have the left hand. It's very easy to defend into the turn 1 around the outside because you do have the inside for the next 2 corners. However, Dorman is going to have to potentially give this one up. They're going to go straight into the turn 6, which is a sharp right-hander. Another off in the background, and that is Will Powell.
Yeah, so I didn't quite catch that, but there was a collision there between Will Powell. But I tell you what, that was a great battle between Andy Dorman and Ryan Elliot here. But Andy Dorman's had a little bit of a barge, and then there's a driver throwing the inside. Mick Sutton getting his elbows out. And look at this, Jordan Brennan, the opportunist, as always, last time out, round winner. He's just picking these spots up as people start tripping over themselves.
Yeah, Dorman, he did well to hold on to the car, really, didn't he? Because Sutton did tap his rear end, front-wheel drive. You do get the advantage of just being able to stick your foot down, and the car will end up straightening up as long as you obviously have a half-decent amount of car control. If it was a rear-wheel drive car, he would have been absolutely scuppered, wouldn't he? So, Jack McIntyre leads with Mick Sutton off the road, and I think this is Chris Shepard who's going to go up the inside. No, he comes back onto the circuit, Sutton, and goes all the way to the inside to defend harsh. There is a JCW side hole on the inside, and that's exactly the gap that Chris Shepard tries to fill and does it just about successfully. He'll go down into the first corner side by side with Mick Sutton, who obviously qualified so well in 5th place. Unfortunately, looks like he's bleeding positions somewhat. Doesn't help if you end up going into the back of another car and then go off the circuit in the same opening lap. As Chris Shepard dives at the inside, it's important to get the full car ahead of the other, and that's exactly what Shepard's done. Dan Zelos moves himself into the top 10 by overtaking Paul Laramie. He's got Nicky Taylor to catch just up ahead. Dan Zelos obviously second in the championship with 70 kilos on board. We'll keep an eye on his progress.
Yeah, we have, and there's a bit of a collision here between Nicky Taylor, I believe that was, and Nick Sutton, but Nicky Taylor up into P8, and I tell you what, all this argy-bargy is just allowing Dan Zelos to get that little bit closer. Look, he's on his route now, a little bit off the pace, I think you'd agree, but I did actually get the info that he was literally coming through the door in from work during qualifying, so he's managed to jump on, no laps really under his belt, so actually a P10 finish, and he'll be really hoping for that reverse grid race result.
Yeah, exactly. Remember, we do have a reverse grid. We have 2 20-minute races coming up for you this evening, one of which we're obviously well into now. We're nearly 4 minutes in, a lap and a half. It's quite a long lap here in the Nurburgring GP, even though we are the sprint circuit. And but there is plenty of overtaking opportunities on that lap. So hopefully the drivers will do it kindly, do it properly. You know, we don't want any argy-bargy, well, too much argy-bargy. Anyway, we want everyone to have a nice, clean race and set themselves up for that reverse grid, for that race too, which always gets a little bit more hectic, doesn't it, Dave?
It does. I mean, it's always a recipe for it getting a little bit more, but that's almost why we do it, really. It's to try and make it a bit more exciting to watch, and also it really plays a bit of a chance of drivers that maybe don't have the best start in race 1. It gives them that second lifeline to turn that race weekend round, and if we didn't do it, them drivers just maybe, you know, feel really quite hard done by if they get taken out in race 1 and they don't have an opportunity or a chance to try and pull that result back.
Yeah, exactly. One driver who won't be looking forward to it, though, is Jack McIntyre. He's nearly got a 3-second gap at the sharp end of the field to Callum Newsham. He's really pulled away. But look at this defensive driving there by Nicky Taylor as Mick Sutton looks up the outside. Dan Zelos goes to the inside. Dan Zelos saw the opportunity and he thought, you know what, if you're going to leave a gap, I'm gonna take that gap. Thank you very much. Mick Sutton ends up going off the road again, and he is bleeding positions badly. Sutton needs to get his head down. He needs to get into the rhythm, try and find out what he did on that one flying lap, because let's be honest, Dave, it was only one flying lap. Maybe the race pace and the consistency isn't there for Mick Sutton tonight.
Maybe not, but I tell you one driver that is impressing me at the moment, Paul Laramie there, right on the heels still of the top 10, so very impressive. Oh, look at this, Callum Newsham getting a little bit of a tap by Ryan Elliot here, and who's this coming up behind? Scott Bugner with a slight inside overlap on Andy Dorman, and Jordan Brennan's looking at all this thinking, I can be a part of this if I just get my head down. And I tell you what, a bit of this slipstream down here, look at this, Andy Dorman with the overlap on Scott Bugner. This is maybe a little bit of that ballast creeping in, but I tell you what, this battling is fantastic to see.
Yeah, we haven't focused much on the battle for second place because this is ultimately what the battle is for, considering Jack McIntyre is checked out. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it develops as the cars are going side by side with each other. Ryan Elliot goes into second place. Newsham's trying to come back at him, and again, it's so hard to finalise the deal into turn 1, but Newsham gets bumped wide. There was contact. I'm not going to try and sway which way I think it was heading, whether it's fair, unfair, because we don't get to see the replay and everything happens so quickly. But we do know the ultimate price is the fact that Elliot is in second place, Bugner's in third, Dorman fourth, Brennan is moved up to 5th, and Callum Newsham's gone all the way down to 6th place. However, if they keep fighting, Newsham is going to be basically right there. And actually, if you look in the rearview mirrors, because we're on board with Brennan, you can see Newsham's car is not far away at all. And then you got Chris Shepard. So really, we're going for a 6-car battle for second place. Ryan Elliot will be hoping to get his head down. He'll be hoping to go and try and secure that second place and let them fight it out for third. And I don't think Bugner or Dorman will see it that way.
No, I tell you what, McIntyre has well and truly checked out, hasn't he?
God.
But it really just shows once these drivers start to battle, they really do bunch up hard and lose a lot of lap time. But I tell you one thing, I think Andy Dorman here has got quite a lot of pace, and it's actually proven really interesting to see how he's going to gauge this in front. That looked to me like Scott Bugner not quite getting the best run out of that corner as possible, and I think Dan Zelos in the background has got past Nicky Taylor. Now this is really interesting because I know fine well that Dan Zelos has done a bit of coaching, a bit of data analysis with Nicky Taylor in the Coopers. Now this is really interesting to see on E-Series, Cooper driver versus JCW driver. Oh, Mick Sutton's had a little punt up behind. I tell you what, Nicky Taylor's done well to get that stopped again, and he's going to have the inside line here. I'd imagine he'll get that back from Mick Sutton, just show him the door a little bit after that punt. And I tell you what, Nicky Taylor's going to have a second opportunity here to close the gap on the back of Dan Zelos, but that's a dive up the inside by Mick Sutton. And then look at Paul Laramie. Paul Laramie's right on the back of this battle, and Nicky Taylor's responded with that little barge. And I tell you what, it is all kicking off between these two drivers.
Yeah, I think they need to take a chill pill, each of them, don't they, as Sutton goes up the inside again. Hopefully there's no more contact between them. Laramie has somehow stuck into a wall, I believe, or just made some kind of mistake. Sutton switches for the inside. Is he going to make contact with it at rear end? No, of Nicky Taylor. Obviously, we saw Mick Sutton make contact before with Andy Dorman at that exact corner in that exact way. Luckily, we don't see it this time, but look at this. Taylor goes wide. He doesn't get the run out of the corner that he's wanting. So Sutton goes to the outside through the fast right, and he's going to go for the cutback. Yes, he is, which means he'll be on the outside for the chicane. Is that advisable? Probably not. There's not much room there. He goes for the dive. He sends the old switcheroo, goes for the dive into the chicane, and I tell you what, there was a touch. But I would say that's about as clean as I've seen them that lap, and that's the move that stuck.
Yeah, it has indeed, and I tell you what, this is all kicking off behind with Will Powell on the back of this group now for 11th, 12th and 13th place. I tell you what, Will Powell's put a few good laps in here, and he's all over this now. But this is great battling all the way down the grid, and actually, I noticed there's a battle at the front for Ryan Elliot and Scott Bugner as well, so good luck Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast of choosing which battle to watch here.
Yeah, as we see Paul Laramie try and fly the inside, Will Powell makes contact with Kenny Press. Laramie goes up to 12th place. Press and Powell still fighting it out as we shoot to the front of the field. Scott Bugner still behind Ryan Elliot, but we did see them switch positions momentarily, so they're not exactly doing it lying down, put it that way. Dorman, Brennan, Newsham, Shepard are the other drivers that are involved in this little train. If you're wondering who's winning, McIntyre, and he's just set a purple sector 1. So really, he's just showing off at this point because he is a good 8.5 seconds in the lead of Ryan Elliot. So there we go, McIntyre in the lead. Say goodbye to him. We'll congratulate him in 10.5 minutes time, essentially. So, on board of Jordan Brennan, Dorman ahead of him, Bugner and Elliot fighting it. Now, Dorman is well in the race, Dave, isn't he? Because it's the start where he really suffered last time. He survived the start somewhat. He started in 3rd, he's in 4th. Bugner and Elliot still go side by side. I couldn't see around Dorman's car, but they are indeed fighting, and I think Bugner's ended up off the road. It's Elliot off the road. Bugner on the inside of the final corner, but look how late Elliot's trying to brake. He's going to miss the apex completely, and Dorman's going for the gap. Dorman is trying to open the door. Let's see if he can get it down into turn 1. He'll have the slipstream of Scott Bugner. Ryan Elliot is not going to have any help here whatsoever. Are they going to go 3 wide? This would be foolish to the extreme, and to be honest, I wouldn't like to be Ryan Elliot at this point on the outside of turn 1. It's a wide track, boys. Don't close it up any more than it needs. Brilliant driving from all 3 to get through that, and including Jordan Brennan as well, who's on the back of it. Bugner in 2nd place, Dorman in 3rd, Ryan Elliott's dropped down to 4th. Jordan Brennan is hoping to mop up something, but nothing is being spilt his way yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching this thing, and this is fantastic racing at the moment. Dorman doing an absolutely brilliant job there to get his way back up in a podium position. You know, he's maybe not proven to be one of the best contenders at the start of the race, but you cannot argue with the pace Dorman's got at the moment, pulling himself back through this grid, and Scott Bugner doing a great job as well. Callum Newsham and Chris Shepard hard battling here as well. Chris Shepard's got the inside line going into the left-hander. It's going to be all for Newsham in this tour down the next straight. Let's see how we can get this corner done. In fact, it's actually not. It's Newsham who's come out in front, and Chris Shepard's going to have the inside line. This is going to all be down to the braking area in that chicane.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see the old switcheroo. I don't love to see banging into the chicane, though, that's not exactly ideal. Keep it civil, boys. You want to go through. Callum Newsham stays in the lead then. This is proper mini racing, isn't it? A bit of door bashing never goes amiss in the minis, and it's what suits people up to enjoy the touring cars as well. It's why drivers from the real mini championship ends up, quite a lot of them go into the touring cars. Oh, it was Paul Laramie. Paul Laramie down to 15th place, and I could already feel he was a potential driver of the day for Dave. It may well still come to that, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, race 2 is where we separate the drivers for the driver of the days anyway. So, back to the front. Jordan Brennan, again, not mopped up anything yet. There's been nothing to mop up yet because the drivers ahead of them have kept it relatively civil. We've had no big spinners. Callum Newsham obviously was sent off the road earlier on. He's actually stayed ahead of Chris Shepard into turn 1 as well with a touch of a gap.
Oh, was that
Dorman's gone through on Bugner.
Yeah, I thought I caught that out the corner of my eye. Dorman up the inside, back into P2 after being knocked out of P2 in qualifying, obviously. Brilliant effort. We missed that move a little bit, but just seemed to get the underlap towards the right-hander, and that is job done. So maybe Scott Bugner and Ryan Elliot, this is maybe something I didn't actually consider, Jack. Maybe them cars with ballast are just starting to struggle on them tyres a little bit now, whereas Dorman with that 10 kg on will have so much better tyres.
Yeah, that's going to have to be, what we keep an eye out on, and maybe a question for the interview as well, because obviously Jack McIntyre just putting purple sectors in. He's obviously not having any issues, whereas maybe some of the other drivers, it's just starting to show. But that's a brilliant exit there by Ryan Elliot, and he's going to be at the inside of Andy Dorman. He didn't get the exit that he wanted. So, sorry, Elliot on Bugner. My apologies. Dorman is away at the moment, but Elliot goes through into 3rd place, seeing the other driver just off the circuit a little bit, hung out to dry, but it's not done and
Callum
dusted.
Newsham.
Yeah, I know. I was just about to say Callum Newsham just behind, and not just Callum Newsham, Chris Shepard. No, it's Jordan Brennan, sorry. I'm trying to keep up with these drivers. Callum Newsham and Jordan Brennan, the 2 drivers there, 2 by 2. Hurrah, hurrah, we say in the commentary box as they go through all clean as you like for now. We've seen a lot of contact. There's a little bit more.
Oh.
Nothing too untoward for now. Jordan Brennan goes through on Callum Newsham.
Yeah, I tell you what, this is... Oh, and that's a tap. Scott Bugner tap the back of Ryan Elliot. That's a momentum loss, and Ryan Elliott's trying to cut back across the track. That was maybe a little bit naughty here. Let's keep this in order, lads. Jordan Brennan looking for anywhere past, but I tell you what, this is grouping this pack right back up. And I tell you what, Dan Zelos isn't that far off the back of this pack of 5 cars.
I was going to say, I think Dan Zelos working for the postcode lottery here, because he's knocking on the door, isn't he? He's coming up in 8th place, and he wants a bit of this action. He sees the drivers fighting.
I tell you who's coming up, Jack. Mick Sutton, just looking at the lap times, 40.1, 5/10 faster than Dan Zelos last lap. So Mick Sutton is actually the driver to watch here. Mick Sutton with 5 minutes left of this race. I tell you what, this is not all done and dusted. Who will be the last step on this podium?
Well, I'll tell you what, if the 5 drivers we've currently got in our shot actually finish this race, I'll be amazed. I'm very hopeful for it, but there has been a lot of drama as Dan Zelos goes past Mick Sutton. I don't know how Mick Sutton ended up there in the first place, to be honest, because he was behind Dan Zelos. So maybe he just sent it through the corner. I have no idea, to be honest. And is that Andy Dorman with a purple? No. Okay, I thought Andy Dorman had a purple lap time, but it was just that previous lap he was the fastest of anyone, or his personal best anyway. Will Powell moving up to 12th position with Brad Smith. Here's Mick Sutton on the outside of Dan Zelos. Callum Newsham's moved past Jordan Brennan yet again. Zelos, he doesn't want to be mixed up with a fight with Mick Sutton, does he? Because he's seeing this battle, the 2x2s all over the place, and just needing to get there. Brennan and Newsham going side by side yet again. Bugner and Elliot, and you know what? Who's in this pic? Not in this picture anymore, Dave. It's Andy Dorman. He's flown away. There's a good 4 seconds or 3.5 seconds to the good against Ryan Elliot here as they fight it out, and you don't know which way to look, do you? We're on board with Chris Shepard. He's got a pretty good view, but this is again flying backwards to the battle for 11th place between Brad Smith and Will Powell. Been a bit of a baptism of fire for Will Powell. I'm sure he'll probably enjoy the reverse grid a little bit more, where he can get his hands stuck in to a little bit higher up racing and hopefully keep it nice and clean. But he's doing very well considering he had that earlier contact and then that contact slightly after the early contact, if that makes sense. And hopefully he's enjoying his race with Brad Smith, because it looks like they are going very closely at it and enjoying themselves.
Yeah, they really are, and I tell you what, this is some great racing. I tell you what, there's been probably a little bit too contact for my liking, but I tell you what, it has been fantastic action to watch. I think you'd agree, Jack.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be, I think Rich is going to have maybe just a touch of a word with the drivers about, yeah, we want to have clean racing.
Callum Newsham back down to P7. So we're not sure what happened there, whether that was collision or anything, but obviously Callum Newsham had got past Brennan and making ways towards Scott Bugner and Ryan Elliot, and he finds himself dropping 2 positions back behind Jordan Brennan and Chris Shepard. Dan Zelos is now looking all over the back of Callum Newsham. Obviously these 2 drivers raced together in the real life JCW mini challenge, so actually no love lost will be between these, but mixed up with an opportunist move up the inside of Dan Zelos, and I tell you what, he's got the job done. Mick Sutton up into P9, making, I tell you what, brilliant progress forward and possibly going to catch Callum Newsham.
That is a hell of a move around the outside there, isn't he? But he's just ruined it by locking up slightly. He got away with that one because I think Dan Zelos just went a little bit too hot as well, didn't he? And he just didn't get the car. He couldn't get the nose turned into the apex soon enough. Callum Newsham's going to have to work very hard for the next 2 minutes to, 1, keep these drivers behind them, but 2, he wants to be within touching distance to take advantage of anything that happens. Obviously, he's been nudged backwards early in the race. Now he fought back and he was right in that fight with Jordan Brennan. Now he's been nudged backwards again. We didn't see what happened, but something must have happened, like you said, Dave, because he's down in 7th, which is unfortunate. The speed that Mick Sutton sends through that chicane is quite frightening, to be honest. Dan Zelos a little bit cleaner with it, but it has to be said, I think Sutton's not taking any prisoners with those apexes. Chris Shepard versus Jordan Brennan then, and Ryan Elliot versus Scott Bugner. McIntyre is good 12 seconds ahead of Andy Dorman now. Dorman in 2nd place, but look at this defense from Jordan Brennan. He knows exactly where to put his car, and it's all over the white lines on the inside. He's going to have to go very defensive, but look at that. Chris Shepard flies around the outside and makes the apex. Absolutely outstanding move there by Chris Shepard going through the first corner, because he gave Jordan Brennan no option but to take the medicine. No fight back, no talking back, just you're going to have to go into 6th, Jordan. I'm sorry about this. And Jordan's not taking it lying down, though. A little bit of a move up his back end. Luckily, Chris Shepard probably half expected it, kept his foot on the throttle down into T6. Now, this is where the GP circuit goes from the longer version down into the sprint version. Remember, Jordan Brennan currently on board with him with 30 seconds to go in the race. He's got 80 kilograms of ballast on board, so he's doing this with 80 kilos. Chris Shepard, currently 3rd place in the championship, he'll only have 60 kilograms of ballast on board. So a high ballast battle, but still very impressive that they're even with fighting for top 5 positions, in my opinion. McIntyre is about to come across the line to take the checkered flag for the first race here on a Tuesday night. And as the clock counts down, I think he will take the checkered flag here for the mini JCW. No, he hasn't. There's one more lap, and I can't keep this energy up, so I'm going to go back to speaking normally.
Yeah, I think that was just the actual line there, catching us out a little bit with the early line. But yeah, Jack Mack probably only a second off of actually being able to finish the lap there. If I was him, I would have just backed off a little bit and not made sure you'd have to do the extra lap. But it's up to him. Anyway, Scott Bugner and Ryan Elliot, a fantastic battle. And Nick Sutton looking very, very racy indeed on the back of Callum Newsham. And I tell you what, I cannot wait for, Jack. Look at how close this grid's been the entire race, with the exception of McIntyre, obviously. But actually, the grid so tightly together. Still, after 20 minutes of racing, race 2 is going to be absolutely frantic. And Nicky Taylor sitting the provisional P1 for the reverse grid race.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty stunning, to be honest. And you're right, you know, the drivers just haven't spread out apart from McIntyre and Dorman. And that's just because Elliot and Bugner started fighting, really, is the fact that obviously Dorman has good pace, but that's the biggest reason why he's 5.5 seconds in the sort of in the lead of this battle, I suppose. You know, in that 2nd place. Anyway, McIntyre, he had 13 seconds to play with. He couldn't have given up one of them to cross the line and taking the checkered flag and not make me look like a fool, could he? We are coming up to the final corner now. McIntyre has taken it. He's going to come across the line. And for the second time of me announcing it, he's going to take the race victory here at the Nurburgring for the mini JCW. Only one race done and dusted. He'll have to do it from 10th place if he wants to match Jordan Brennan's escapades from last time out. Andy Dorman comes across the line in second place. He'll probably feel like he deserves that on pace. And to be fair, I think he deserves it on racing as well today. Ryan Elliot comes across in third with Scott Bugner in fourth. Chris Shepard rounds out the top 5 with Jordan Brennan in 6th place. Callum Newsham in 7th. Probably not too impressed the fact that he kept getting bumped down the order. Dan Zelos was Mick Sutton was in 8th place. Dan Zelos in 9th. Nicky Taylor will be on pole position as he rounded out the top 10. Will Powell in 11th. A lot of experience, shall we say, gained in that one. Brad Smith in 12th place. Kenny Press was in 13th. Simon Thorpe was in 14th. And rounding out the field is Paul Laramie after he ended up facing backwards earlier in the race.
Yeah,
so,
it's a real shame for Paul Laramie that he was looking so strong, wasn't he there, Jack?
Oh, he was. It's because him and Mick Sutton were probably, they would argue, doing better than they were expecting throughout the race. And as you say, it's unfortunate Paul Laramie got turned around. Luckily, there were still some happy faces in that race, I'm sure. And you'll be speaking to a fair few of them because you have the drivers for the podium.
Yeah, we will indeed. So first of all, we'll go down to our P3 finisher, Ryan Elliot. That looked like one of the hardest races to ever judge. A really difficult track amongst a grid that was so mixed. You had to work seriously hard for that P3.
I mean, that was easily one of the top 3 races I've ever had at VRRC. It was incredible. I mean, everyone was just there or thereabouts, and really had to work hard for it. Like, you know, and keeping like people like Andy and Scott behind me was a real task. But I had great fun. Jack absolutely smashed it. I mean, as soon as he got away at the first corner and everyone else started battling, I think we all knew it would be over. But it's good for me because obviously I've finished ahead of everyone else in front of me in the points. Jack was behind me going into it, so was Andy. So I'm sure Jack will be there with me now. But I beat my closest rivals, which was exactly what I needed to do and what I need to do in the next one.
Well, congratulations on taking a P3, and I tell you what, I'm going to say this to all the drivers. They're really looking forward to seeing how you can get your way through the grid and race too.
Yeah, spot on, thank you.
Moving forward on our P2 finisher, Andy Dorman, just robbed of P2 in qualifying by the smallest of margins, but you managed to fight your way through in the pack. A little bit of a slow start, but just nibbled your way through the pack and got yourself back up to a fantastic P2 finish. My God, did you have to work for that though?
Oh, that was definitely a workout.
I mean, regarding how busy it was, I take it you knew you had the pace, but it was just trying to calculate when to try and make their moves without getting overtaken yourself from behind.
Yeah, it was all about just taking the first few laps nice and clean so we don't get turned around or anything, and then just go forward from there.
I mean, you've got a difficult task now of starting further back in the grid, but you and Jack obviously have the advantage of not quite having as much weight now as the drivers that's in front of you. How much did you notice that pace advantage on sort of braking areas and the pace coming out of the corners? Do you think the ballast is actually worth that much?
It's more mid-corner speed, I think.
Right, so that's interesting to hear. So, yeah, we're interested to see how you get on in race 2 anyway and get through the pack from P9 you're starting. So huge congratulations, Andy Dorman, on a P2 and a fantastic podium.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave.
I'll move on to our P1 finisher. Jack, as you can probably guess, you didn't get that much stream time there, if I'm honest with you.
No, that's fine. I'll take that. Yeah, I mean, just got away at the start. Had a really good start and hooked it up, and you know had the right line down into turn 1, and yeah, it was just 20 minutes of qualifying laps from then on. So it was good to see the guys battling in the mirror as I drove off on the first lap, and yeah, just head down, and yeah, all worked out.
I mean, I know you're probably chuffed to get the win, but I tell you what, if you'd seen the battle and that was going off behind you and being involved with it, it was some of the best racing that I've actually seen. It fantastic efforts behind. It must be a little bit worrying to see what you're about to just get involved with now in race 2.
Yeah, a little bit. It'll be a really good test of the pace to see how much difference the weight makes. But yeah, looking forward to it. I'll have to go back and watch that race one because yeah, it sounds like it was a good one.
It was a rather good one. Fantastic effort there, Jack. Been a fairly dominant round here so far. Let's see if you can get through the pack and be talking to you again after race 2.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. I don't think I've ever had the perfect weekend yet at VRRC. So yeah, hopefully this time.
Well, it's looking like it's on the books. Congratulations.
Cheers. Thank you.
And that was Dave Marshall chatting to our podium sitters. I always like when you do the interviews, Dave, and you always do them because it gives my voice a break, to be honest, because that was... We very rarely see a race that's that frantic for race 1, do we? Because normally, race 2, you're expecting it, reverse grid and everything, but race 1, qualifying dictates where everybody sits. Normally, they sort of just drive, and there's a little battle here and there and everything like that. But that was a 7-way battle for second place, wasn't it? Which is just something you don't see in race 1.
Yeah, I mean, if race 2 is even going to be 8/10 of what we've just seen, I just cannot wait. That was so frantic.
It was indeed, yeah. So, with only a minute to go into race 2, let's have a look at the grid. Nicky Taylor on pole position. Dan Zelos in second place. He'll be hoping to try and take advantage and get some good, solid points on the board, considering he is second in the championship. Mick Sutton is in third. Callum Newsham ends up fourth after falling down the order. Look at him for a potential race victory if he can keep it clean early on in the race. Jordan Brennan, Chris Shepard, Scott Bugner, Ryan Elliot, Andy Dorman, and Jack McIntyre round out the top 10. If you thought that was quick, well, it's because of the lights you're about to see on your screen. I didn't look at the countdown before starting. Lights go on, though. The engine notes rise, and we are about to get racing for the second time here on a Tuesday night for the AOC Gaming League of Champions Mini JCW. Nicky Taylor with a good start. Dan Zelos with an equally good start, actually. And look at that aggressive defensive manoeuvre there by Nicky Taylor into turn 1. Mick Sutton might have fancied himself here to go around the outside, but Dan Zelos goes to the outside and maybe try and go for a late braking opportunity. That means Sutton has an opportunity to go on the inside, but Zelos, with that late brake, I think will just about manage to get through. We're looking at Andy Dorman, Sutton around the outside for the turn 2 and turn 3 is a very, very difficult move. We have seen it once before. We aren't going to see it here today, though, as he looks up the inside of Zelos, who may well be left out to dry here. Sutton, again, backing out of it with Callum Newsham going into fifth, fourth. It's between him and Jordan Brennan, just like race number 1, with Nicky Taylor still leading the way. Dan Zelos in second and Mick Sutton in third. Callum Newsham on the outside of him, currently in fourth, with Jordan Brennan wanting to upset that particular party, and the Newsham nutters in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how you start to commentate on this. There is cars absolutely everywhere, but a slight bounce off the curb.
Oh, Mick Sutton,
he's been collected.
no!
Mick Sutton from a fantastic start, collected by, unfortunately, I think it was Jack Mack who just managed to nibble the back end of him as he came back across the track. Jack Mack doing very, very well not to be collected amongst that. I was just about to say, what a clean start that was. There was cars absolutely lit at the grid and fantastic racing from top bottom. And no, Will Powell ended up in the wall. I don't know whether that was a collision from behind, but all this is getting a bit frantic at the front. Dan Zelos showing a little bit of elbows with Nicky Taylor here, but a fantastic show by both of these drivers so far.
Yeah, we've had a message from Rich, the race director, saying that he's had a bit of a word about contact, but I'm guessing it's fallen on deaf ears at this point because it's getting a bit frantic.
I would say, actually, that was a very clean start. I think it was just a little bit unfortunate. From what I've seen, that was a bit of a lunge. That was very, very lucky, and actually, that's not been a favour at all for him. I believe Ryan lost 3 places because of that. Doing very, very well to try and find a gap at all there. Oh, and there's been a tap. Scott Bugner's in the back of Jordan Brennan, I believe that was. So actually, Jordan Brennan, is he going to manage to get out back in front of Scott Bugner? I believe he has. But I tell you what, this is all getting a bit frantic, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you said Ryan Elliot lost 3 positions. Well, actually, he sent it up the inside of 3 people, didn't he? It was that it was that late, so it looks bad on the stats, but it probably ended up maybe only 1 worse off than he started. But it just goes to show I mean, we're not even 3 minutes into this race, not even 3 laps into this race, are we, Dave? And they're already trying to rush to the front of the field. Dan Zelos is the man who is currently at the front of the field. Nicky Taylor's done well to stay in 2nd place, I have to say. Now, I tipped Callum Newsham for a potential race win here. I think he's got a bit more pace than Dan Zelos. He's currently in 3rd. He needs to get past the front 2 as quickly as he possibly can, because otherwise he's going to have a train, and you know what that train's going to do. It's going to suck you in, and it's going to spit you out at some point, potentially. As Ryan Elliot goes up the inside of Scott Bugner, Jack McIntyre is the driver you're currently on board with. Race 1 winner. He's in 8th place. Maybe that's a sign that he's calmed everything down just a touch from his perspective to try and pick out his positions. Callum Newsham looks like he's going for a move here, but that's a huge move on Nicky Taylor just before they hit the braking zone at the inside of Dan Zelos. And I think he's made the apex. Has he made the move stick? No, he hasn't. He's gone down to 3rd. Zelos is going to hold on for 1st place, but only just ahead of Callum Newsham. And look at this, Nicky Taylor's coming back. Newsham's on the outside. Zelos is very much preoccupied with Callum Newsham right now, and that's allowed Nicky Taylor at the back at the inside. I don't know how to call this, because these drivers are just swapping position left, right, and centre. It's one of those times where you just think, maybe we'll just sit back, Dave, not say anything, and let the driving speak for itself. But I'm not being paid for that, so let's just go for it. 3 wide into turn number 6. Callum Newsham goes through. Nicky Taylor makes contact with Dan Zelos, comes across the grass, makes contact again. Nicky Taylor's been spat out. He's still going. Dan Zelos is still in 2nd place. Taylor has dropped down to 4th place. And you know what that means? He's in the fight. He's in the wars. McIntyre up to 7th.
That has been some of the craziest racing that I've ever witnessed. It's not necessary that people are being dirty here. There's just not enough track for the cars.
There absolutely isn't. I mean, we're going 3 wide through the fastest corner on the circuit, that right-hander, now down in towards the chicane. We're looking at Jordan Brennan. Who is he fighting? It's Jack Mack. It's Ryan Elliot. It's Scott Bugner. It's everyone on the damn grid is who they're fighting, because everyone is hoping to get ahead of Dan Zelos. Callum Newsham has gotten a 1.3 second gap as Nicky Taylor's been overtaken by Ryan Elliot. Taylor is trying his best and doing a very good job to hold on to the top end of this grid at the moment. And to be fair, he's lasted over 5 minutes. That is longer than most reverse grids pole position people we see, isn't it? It's a very good job from him. And he's not done. Ryan Elliot up the inside of Nicky Taylor. Taylor's trying to hold on to the outside, though. He gets a bit of a drift on. So does Scott Bugner, who gets through, though. So, at the moment, it's Newsham, Zelos, Elliot, Bugner, and then it all gets a bit messy. Your guess is as good as mine, but at the moment, it's Taylor, McIntyre, Brennan, Shepard, and Dorman, with Smith in 10th position. Who we're looking at here? Jack McIntyre, race 1 winner, and to be fair, he's doing quite a good job, Dave, of getting through calmly.
Yeah, I think Jack's just trying to weigh everything up and wait for the sort of everything to settle down a little bit, and then he can start to make some moves. But I tell you what, I just don't see it happening. This is going to last all the way till the flag. And I tell you what, Callum Newsham's got the break he needed. He's out there in the front. But I tell you what, a bit of the bottle here at the moment is Dan Zelos. Dan Zelos has just got everyone backed up a little bit. Nicky Taylor just seems to just not quite have the lines dialed in as he yet, and that's everything that Jack McIntyre needed to get through. But Nicky Taylor will be back in that slipstream, and there's an opportunity here on the brakes. We've seen Nicky is incredibly committed on the brakes into these moments here.
Did you just say that we'll be waiting for it to calm down? On a mini JCW League of Champions reverse grid race. I don't know what you've been drinking, Dave, but I want some of it, to be honest. It's never going to calm down, is it, in this race? It's going to be flat out from start to finish. It may well be a touch calmer for Callum Newsham, but Jordan Brennan, Nicky Taylor, again, making a little bit of contact as they come out of the corner. Nicky Taylor stays ahead of Jordan Brennan, who got the perfect evening this time last week, wasn't he? He was carving through the field. He actually did a recovery drive. And look at this, Andy Dorman on Chris Shepard. Up the inside, Chris Shepard with a really late break. There's contact. A little drift by Chris Shepard. To be fair, I think he turned in a little bit. And Dorman was always there.
Yeah, I think that was maybe a little bit of a case of both cars were late on the brakes. and I think Chris Shepard just turned across the nose of Andy Dorman there. That's what it looked like to me. But Andy Dorman doing very well. Actually, he's managed to get the inside line, but he won't get the cutback because Chris Shepard's going to get the cutback up into the right-hander here. This is a brilliant battle going on, but look in front as well. I mean, how do you commentate on this? There is battles everywhere on the grid. There isn't enough cameras going on the go here.
There isn't enough cameras, there isn't enough syllables, there isn't enough seconds on the clock, is there, to try and recount everything that's going on right now. We haven't even mentioned the fact that you can vote for your driver of the day. Let us know who you think it's going to be, because there's about 17 different options here tonight, and there's only 15 drivers, because I'm just throwing 2 extra ones in. Dave can have an AOC gaming headset if he wants for commentator of the day. I don't know, but there is fantastic opportunities up and down the grid. Everyone has had a very frantic, edge of your seat evening, and it's not done, especially for the likes of Dan Zelos. 2 wide, I think that was almost 3 wide through the chicane. A little bit of a drift on for Jack McIntyre. Nicky Taylor is not giving up. Nicky Taylor is going for every opportunity possible. There's a gap, I'll go for it. There isn't a gap, I'll still go for it. I'll make up my own track. Scott Bugner, though, in 4th place. Nicky Taylor is in 5th, still ahead of Jack McIntyre. The last thing Jack McIntyre will want, Dave, is to get caught up in something, isn't he?
Oh,
if he doesn't want, you know, he'll want the perfect evening, but he'd rather just pick up solid points. And moves like that on Nicky Taylor will get him those solid points.
Yeah, I think that was a case of he showed his nose to make Nicky Taylor think he was going there. Then Nicky had to back out of it, but then he actually got off the brakes, did you see, to make sure that lunge was definitely on. But I tell you what, fair play Nicky Taylor. Held his own from a reverse grid race, and yes, he's dropped back a little bit, but I don't think that was entirely all his own doing. He's been shown the grass a few times, as he's done to other drivers a little bit as well. But I tell you what, a determined effort, and I think he's still going to find a way back through past Jack Mack. In fact, I think Nicky Taylor's finding more and more pace as this race goes on, and he's actually going, you know what, I'm a bit racier in this than I thought, and I'm going to get my way through the grid.
Amazingly, though, if you're talking about lap times, Mick Sutton has purple sector 1 on 3 of the last 4 laps, I think. He hasn't done it on the one just gone, but sensational. He's at the back of the field.
Dorman.
Clean air, but Dorman gets through on Chris Shepard. That means he's overtaken Jordan Brennan and Chris Shepard now. Although, no, I thought Brennan was Shepard was potentially coming back at him. He's got Nicky Taylor ahead, and I was going to say Nicky Taylor might be one of the easier ones to get past, but he has proven anything but. As Shepard goes up the inside of Jordan Brennan's got to get up the inside of Chris Shepard's time.
Yeah, I mean, some fantastic battles anywhere you look on this track. As I said, Nicky Taylor in that light car, we've seen the pace Dorman's got as well, also a very light car. If Andy and Nicky can work together here, there's a great opportunity that they can keep driving forward, and they can both end up on the podium at this rate.
I thought McIntyre was going to get seen to the grass there, but actually he's managed to pull the overtake off on Dan Zelos. Maybe Zelos should have put him on the grass, and he's trying to now, isn't he? A little tap at the backside. To be fair, I don't think that was intentional.
No,
and obviously we don't advocate any putting on the grass as intentional. But that means Zelos is going to get overtaken here by Nicky Taylor potentially. McIntyre up to 4th place. He's flying, and now he's got, I don't know, half a second of clean air. You can be sure he's going to be on the back of Bugner before you know it.
He has, and I tell you what, I look at the timing sheet and Newsham has just gone. He is away with this now, but I tell you what, Dan Zelos is trying every trick in his book to try and hang on to any place he can. I think he knows he doesn't have quite the pace in the car. Remember, a big amount of weight on his car, the same as Brennan's, and if you look at that respectively, Brennan down there in 9th place. So actually, Dan Zelos doing very well to hold on to this. But I tell you what, here comes Nicky Taylor. He's in the slipstream. He's looking for the move up the inside. He's still up the inside on Dan Zelos. He's going to get that job done, I believe. 2x2 through the chicane. Dan Zelos is going to run him a little bit wide. Is he going to have the outrun down to the last corner? He isn't. Dan Zelos is still going to have the inside line. Will Nicky Taylor brave it on the outside, or is he going for the cutback? And I tell you what, Andy Dorman's up the inside of both of them. Andy Dorman might get both these positions.
I tell you what, if Dorman... To be honest, my vote for driver of the day at the moment is between Andy Dorman for his overall performance and Nicky Taylor just for the driver of race 2. As they go 3 wide, Taylor's decided to go for the outside line. Zelos turns into Dorman. Zelos turned into Dorman. Cut that off. Nicky Taylor went for the opportunity to get the cutback. And look at this. It's Jordan Brennan trying to get in on the mix. They're all still pointing in the right direction. Chris Shepard in 8th place. Taylor into 7th. Dorman. Zelos got through. Dorman's through. They're still going side by side with Shepard and Taylor. They're swapping positions as they go through the right-hander. It'll sort themselves out. Nicky Taylor is still in 7th place. But I just love the fact that Taylor is just thriving, fighting with these guys. And he's going for everything. And to be fair, I don't know about you, Dave. I haven't seen him do it dirty. It's been, you know, opportunistic. Don't get me wrong. It's been a bit brave. But I wouldn't say it's been reckless.
No, I wouldn't either. He's definitely trying every trick in the book that he's picked up from the Cooper in real life. And I tell you what, it's paying off. He's really thriving on being in the racing scenario. It's not about overall lap time. It's about that racecraft. And clearly, Nicky's got his head switched on when it's come down to that. Into P7 he is. And I tell you what, I don't think he's going to finish in P7. He's working his way forward. And I tell you what, for me, Andy Dorman, the way he's just sat back, calculated it, watched for them moves, and he's done it ever so cleanly. I still don't think there's a patch on his car, so fair play Andy Dorman here as well.
Yeah, we just saw McIntyre get through on Scott Bugner, so McIntyre in to the podium positions. He's been absolutely sensational throughout the evening, it has to be said, and he'll be rewarded with those points. Sometimes we do give driver of the day to the driver who scored the most points. That's mainly because they've also provided us with the most amount of excitement, but we do like to try and reserve driver of the day for someone who hasn't necessarily been rewarded with all the points, but he has gotten the excitement going, the heart rate up, and just made it a very enjoyable set of races to watch. And I have to say, Nicky Taylor right now has made this second race a very enjoyable watch. Andy Dorman, though, you're right, he's been measured. He did brilliantly in race 1. He finally got that second place. His pace maybe deserved as well. So there's 2 drivers already that are well in the mix for an opportunity to win an AOC gaming headset.
Yeah, definitely. I tell you what, I'm going to really struggle to pick someone here. From what I can see, we need people to comment here who deserves this driver of the day, because there is about 6 drivers on this grid at the moment that I think are all performing outstandingly. Jack Mack here in the slipstream behind Ryan Elliot. Obviously, Jack in the slightly faster car. Ryan Elliot not really giving him any room there at all, but there was a white line, so that is just about on track. Jack Mack, and I tell you what, Ryan Elliot showed him the way through. 2x2 through the chicane. I tell you what, this is bringing Scott Bugner all the way back into this battle as well.
I'll tell you what, they'll probably be having a bit of a laugh about this as well, because neither of them are giving this up at all, which is very exciting for us to see, and I reckon it's quite exciting for Callum Newsham to see as well, isn't he? Because Newsham had about a 3-second gap. It's now to 5, and there's just under 5 minutes remaining as McIntyre looks like he's just about, if he's braking late enough, I think, yeah, there we go. He goes through into second place. Now he's got 4.5 minutes to catch up, about 5 seconds on Callum Newsham. Normally, you'd say that would be plenty of gap, but McIntyre has absolutely been flying in his qualifying times, about half a second quicker per lap. I think Newsham will probably still just about have it. As we look back at Chris Shepard, Nicky Taylor ahead of him, Jordan Brennan behind them, they have somewhat calmed down compared to the first 15 minutes. That doesn't say much. But you're going to be sure that they're going to still be looking for every opportunity to try and off-put the drivers ahead as Scott Bugner and Ryan Elliot. Scott Bugner, you said he was invited back to have a little look, have a little go. Well, he's back, and he's having a look, and he's having a go.
Yeah. Yeah, phenomenal drive at the moment, and actually, that's just pointed out Nicky Taylor on the last lap, for him doing his fastest lap of the session, so he's bringing his lap time down. I thought this was going to be the case a bit. Nicky Taylor, not the most practice laps on the server, but I tell you what, he's put his head down in the race trim, and I tell you what, he's getting faster and faster, and it shows how quick he's getting because he's catching on the back of Dorman.
Yeah, Dorman, who has been one of the names mentioned in the YouTube chat as well for driver of the day. Another one from Freckles is Jack Mack. I'd say, you know, it's a pretty strong shout, to be honest.
It is.
It's a very strong shout. So, I mean, it just depends, I suppose, if we want to give it to a driver who's really just dominated, or whether we want to give it to a driver who's sort of really just sort of stood out and caught our attention in various ways. I mean, it's not always the best to be over dramatic, but sometimes it does put a good show
Nicky
on.
Taylor on the
Nicky
move on
Taylor
Dorman.
are going past Andy Dorman here. I mean, I think this is the fight. It's hard to look past for the driver of the day. If you were just going for driver of the race, I'd give it to Nicky Taylor without a shadow of a doubt. But Dorman's done it over both races and got great results because of it as well. So Dorman with a cutback here. There was a little bit of contact. He did send Nicky Taylor wide, but Taylor goes back through. Maybe a bit of sportsmanship. I'm not entirely sure. Chris Shepard will be looking at this, wanting more.
That was nearly such a good switchback move by Dorman.
No!
Whoa! I don't know whether that was a late turn in by Dorman or Nicky Taylor tried to turn in too early, but I think he's trying to get back in the pack because he knows Shepard's going to get through. I tell you what, there's a bit of rubbing, but I tell you what, I like what I see. It isn't overly aggressive, but it's Chris Shepard with a slight bash up the back end and Nicky Taylor. Now, can he get his head down, or is Chris Shepard going to have a possible move here going up towards the chicane?
Yeah, we've had another shout-in driver of the day as well. Scott Bugner, driver that we haven't really mentioned that much, but he's come fourth in race 1, and he's third at the moment in race 2 as well, and he's got quite a fair whack of weight on as Nicky Taylor locks up and screws the chicane up something royal. Andy Dorman has given a gap. Chris Shepard has taken a gap on the outside as well. I don't think it's going to come off for him. But look at this. Jordan Brennan going through on Brad Smith. Brad Smith doing a good job as well, has to be said.
I think it's
one of my drivers.
Brad Smith is trying to make a move on Jordan Brennan.
Well, exactly. I think it's been a fair play to him. He's going for the outside now. He's got a good amount of draft from him as well. As we look up ahead, Chris Shepard and Nicky Taylor. I can't quite see who's who on the outside there. I think it's Shepard on the inside, Nicky Taylor on the outside. He's going to go for that cutback because, of course, he can on that race. On that first corner, it's quite often quite hard to pull it off. And it looks like that Taylor hasn't managed to pull it off just yet. Will he dive up the inside into turn number 3? Of course, you bet your house on the fact that he has. And he's got through on Chris Shepard. For how much longer?
Shepard.
Only about 10 metres.
Great one. Yeah, Chris Shepard just keeping the overlap there, getting the undercut on the next corner. I tell you what, this is just going to keep changing positions every single lap. And I tell you what, look
what a move! Oh, he's all over the grass. He's all over the grass.
It's still on the outside, and Jordan Brennan's now on the back of this thing. And blinking heck, look where I am.
I'll tell you what, I might remortgage my house because I would. I'd put all the money on Nicky Taylor going for a move for the. Yeah, here we go. Another move in to try and move forward. Unfortunately, Chris Shepard has been bumped a little bit wide as Jordan Brennan and Brad Smith has gone through. So Shepard down into 10th position. Nicky Taylor in 7th with a bit of clean air for the first time in this entire race. And the counters tick down to 0. I'm not sure where Callum Newsham is on track. I don't think he's about to finish.
He has indeed. He has.
Oh, Callum Newsham has taken the checkered flag. Yeah, sorry, my feed froze all of a sudden. So Newsham takes the checkered flag. McIntyre in 2nd place. Scott Bugner in 3rd. Just about.
Scott Bugner on the line by 0.003 of a second, I think that said. Incredibly close finish there by both Scott Bugner and Ryan Elliot.
Yeah, not a brilliant time for my stream to start lagging. Apologies to everyone for that one. Missing 1 or 2 bits out, but a brilliant race from back to front. This is Will Powell that we're currently looking at. Everybody has finished, so let's take you down on the finishing order. Callum Newsham wins ahead of Jack McIntyre. Scott Bugner in 3rd place. Ryan Elliot in 4th. Dan Zelos ended up in 5th place. Andy Dorman in 6th, rounding out a good evening's work for him. Nicky Taylor, easily the most dramatic driver of the 2nd race, in 7th. Brad Smith in 8th. Jordan Brennan 9th. Paul Laramie in 10th. That's a good showing by Paul Laramie in the end. Will Powell in 10th. Chris Shepard, in 11th. Chris Shepard, it was in 12th. Mick Sutton in 13th. Kenny Press 14th. And Simon Thorpe in 15th position.
I mean, I don't know whether my heart can take that sort of racing, Jack. Like, that was... Have you ever seen racing like that?
Yeah, it was quite heavy, to be honest. We obviously need a driver today as well, Dave. I think you are probably going to go for, you mentioned Jack Mack with a 1st and a 2nd. I think Nicky Taylor is probably the most exciting driver out there. It's just whether or not you could argue that half the moves were even on the grass. and were they even legal? I think that's probably the biggest sticking point for him. Andy Dorman, a solid set of results.
Yeah.
6th place. Don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it?
We'll do the driver interviews, and then we'll come back to driver of the day, and hopefully we'll have a bit more of a definitive answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, even in the YouTube chat, we've got a vote for Dorman, Jack Max, Scott Bugner, and Nicky Taylor. So that's not swaying either way anyway. So I'll tell you what, why don't you have a chat to our podium sitters, and hopefully some more people will vote in the YouTube chat, and we'll pretty much just go off that.
Yeah, so we'll jump down to our P3 finisher. I think it was by 0.003 of a second. Don't hold me to that. Scott Bugner, an incredibly close finish. And I tell you what, I don't think we've ever seen racing like what that provided.
Yeah, there's a lot of close battles there. Bit of contact, but it's one of them things where it's such a tight track, you can't always help it. But it was really good racing. But unfortunately, Jack got past. I sort of let Jack through because I knew he was a lot quicker, and I thought if I can just follow him onto the back of Ryan, then hopefully we can have a three-way fight for the podium.
Wow, a fantastic effort, Scott. And I tell you what, it's going to be interesting to see. You're going to have a different ballast going into the next round. How much do you think that ballast is really mixing things up regarding the pace of different cars?
I think it's mixing it up a lot from what you can see from Dan tonight. He said to me, he's struggling. So yeah, the weight's making a big difference, and makes it a bit more interesting.
Yeah, well, we are definitely enjoying it here up in the comms box. Huge congratulations, Scott, on taking the podium finish, and looking forward to seeing how you do next time out.
Mate.
I'll move on to our P2 finisher. Jack, you said you didn't think you'd be talking to us at the end of this race as well, but you're here. Not quite the perfect weekend. Still looking for that, but I tell you what, race 2, wow, what a race that was.
Yeah, nearly got there. I think with maybe another 10 minutes, I might have been able to get up to the back of Callum. But yeah, that was pretty nuts. There were times in the first race where I was driving around thinking this must be what it's like to be Dave Marshall, but not in the second race. I was back to being clobbered by everyone. So
trust me, there's plenty clobbering still goes.
It was good fun. I had a little coming together with Ryan at the chicane, and then I think he gave that place back, which was really nice of him. I think it was a bit more marginal, and I wasn't really expecting him or asking him to do that, but he did. So that's worth a shout out for fair play for Ryan. But the rest of it, good race. Got quite a lot of damage at the start. There was a car came right across me, spinning in front. I tried to miss it, but I hit that front on. Yeah. So that was I think that affected my straight line speed a little bit. But yeah, I mean, chuffed with second after last week.
Yeah, we were saying it, you were very, very lucky. It was millimetres. Any later in that collision, he would have been into the side of your car. So very, very lucky not to be a very serious accident, taking you clean out the race. Just a quick question on the ballast. How much do you think that's going to play a part? Obviously, you're going to have a lot more ballast going into the next round. Do you think it's going to affect the positions that much, as well as on tracks that have a little bit more that gradient, like Laguna Seca?
I think so. It seems like from driving a lot closer to everyone in that race, it was the brakes that it made the biggest difference on. I was really noticing that I could brake 10, 20 metres, maybe even 30 metres past people in some places. So even at Laguna Seca, there's a lot of braking zones there. So I think it'll make a big difference. And well, if I say it makes a big difference, if I do well, then that's good, and if I do bad, it's good excuse, isn't it? So.
Well, huge congratulations, Jack, and we'll see how you get on next time out with a little bit more of that weight in the car.
Cheers, Dave. Thank you.
I will move forward. Our P1 finisher. The bad luck finally stops happening, Callum. Finally, a decent result. Great pace tonight, and finally bringing on that P1 finish that you need.
Yeah, after race 1, I thought, and nothing was going to change, but getting a win is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously do this championship in real life. You do racing the JCW Mini Challenge. We've got the Winter Series coming up. This is a nice little bit of a practice in the League of Champions. But has it ever been that frantic in real life? There was cars absolutely everywhere.
No, I think it is a bit more exciting on this, to be fair, because it's really close racing. A lot of bumping as well, but it makes for good content.
It's a lot less expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Ironically, Dan Zelos did say exactly the same thing previous week, actually. After his race 2 win, he turned around and said, you know what, actually, it's fair good battling. how useful is this compared to the real life? Does it increase your awareness? And does it actually help develop you as a driver in the real life, out of interest?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it definitely helps a lot because I've been doing it for the past 2 years now. I just seem to be getting better and better in the real life thing. So, it's definitely good practice.
Well, fantastic effort tonight, Callum. As I said, finally, your end of your bad luck, hopefully, bringing home the results that we think you deserve in the comms box. Your pace is definitely there. Just seem to be in the wrong place a lot of the time. Fantastic effort, and really look forward to seeing how you get next time out.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
And I think what we're going to do, Jack, before we go to the results page, Rich Hayden's just jumped in the chat, our race director and our safety car driver. Luckily, we didn't have to call one out. But Rich, I mean, we're going to have to watch that stream back, but some of the best racing I've ever seen.
That was brilliant, wasn't it? Yeah. So, yet again, the minis deliver fantastic racing. Close, fantastic racing. I had to have a little cheeky word with the drivers between race 1 and 2 to try and calm down on the contact. But, I mean, it was... they're battling out there. And, we say it's not a contact sport, but when they're battling that hard, there's going to be a little bit of argy-bargy.
Yeah. And I'm gonna put the pressure on. We couldn't decide the driver of the day. YouTube couldn't decide driver of the day. Facebook couldn't. We're going to leave it a race director. In your opinion, there's probably, as I say, 6 drivers on your list as well. Who's a driver that's really stood out and you think deserves that driver of the day status?
So am I going to make an executive decision on this?
I think you deserve to make the executive decision because me and Jack don't want to put our heads on the block.
All right. So I'm going to go a little bit. I've done this once before. I can't remember which championship it was. I'm going to have 2 drivers of the round. Jack Mack had an absolute a stonking round. Really, really. I mean, he was just on top form. So Jack, and also one of our newcomers, Nicky Taylor, brand new to VRRC and was very entertaining going through. So we're going to have 2 drivers of the round, Nicky Taylor and Jack Mack.
Well, that's why we leave the executive decisions to Rich, don't we, Jack? We wouldn't have been in the position to do that. So fair play, very generous there, Rich, on awarding 2 driver of the rounds. I'm sure people will agree that was very well deserved as well from both them drivers' perspectives.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't imagine the reaction that we would have got after the stream if we promised 2 people those gaming headsets. But at least Rich can do that, can't he, with all the power that he holds. Yeah, brilliant drive, brilliant racing. I mean, even Tom O'Fowler, who does a brilliant job on the broadcast, was saying he wants 5 more minutes of this racing because it's absolutely sensational as well. Just enough time to have a look and see how the championship stands then. You can see that Jordan Brennan, he's not only been caught, he's been passed by Jack McIntyre, who had a near-perfect evening of racing. 59 points for him. Jordan Brennan with 57. Scott Bugner with 53. He's in 3rd. Callum Newsham with that race win. He desperately needed it. He gets up to 4th place with 51 points, just ahead of Ryan Elliot, who rounds out the top 5 with 50. You can see all the way down to Will Powell there in 15th place as well. On your screen, some brilliant driving all round. I think Mick Sutton will be slightly disappointed that he couldn't pit Brad Smith, to be honest, because of that race 2. He just didn't quite get the results, get the performance and the result that he was looking for. But brilliant driving. Dave, Laguna Seca next, I believe, isn't it?
It is indeed. And you know what? I was saying this at the start of the round. Nurburgring, a little bit of one of them flatter tracks. The ballast, I don't think, would have been worth as much at this track, but we go to Laguna Seca and we know how much gradient is at that track. So honestly, Jack, I'm hoping we get this, but we thought there was some action this round out. Wait till we go to Laguna Seca.
Can we just reverse Laguna Seca so we can go up the corkscrew?
That would be fantastic.
I was going to say, that'll really show the ballast, though, wouldn't
mega.
it? No, it's going to be awesome anyway. The corkscrew is certainly going to throw up a... I mean, because you're so late braking, it's so hard braking into the corkscrew that the weight is really going to make a big difference to how the car pushes through the corner as well. So there'll be some late brake moves, I'm sure, into there. And also the rest of the circuit, because it's awesome. And then Brands Hatch, what a circuit to finish on as well.
Yeah,
so,
for me, Brands doesn't get any better for a finale of a track, does it really? It offers everything from your high speed, your start, gradient, brilliant track.
I'm going to guess, because there will be no noise restrictions on the Sid, that it's going to be the GP loop.
Or the full GP.
Absolutely.
Full GP loop.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. It doesn't get used enough in real life because of those darn noise restrictions. Anyway, Laguna Seca is where we're going to next. Can it get any better than the Nurburgring? I doubt it can, because that was absolutely sensational for race 1 and race 2 for the mini JCWs in the League of Champions. My name's been Jack Oliphant. I've been joined by Dave Marshall. Well done to all the drivers, podium sirs, and driver of the rounds. You can tune in next week for more fantastic League of Champions action. Good night.
Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Barker gets too heavily involved, and that's Whitehead and Coates.
Woo!